Do you remember when turning 65 felt like reaching the autumn of life? When retirement parties came with those jokes about taking it easy and slowing down? Well, I'm here to tell you something that might surprise you. Those golden years between 65 and 85 aren't just about winding down. They're actually your greatest opportunity to extend your life well into your hundreds. Let me share something that stopped me in my tracks last month. I met Eleanor, a vibrant 103-year-old who still tends her garden every morning and hosts a weekly bridge club. When I asked her secret, she smiled and said, "The choices I made in my 70s gave me my 90s and beyond." What if I told you that the decisions you make today, in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, could add not just years, but quality years to your life? Years filled with mornings where you wake up pain-free, holidays surrounded by family who you can recognize and remember, and days where you can still drive yourself to meet friends for coffee. But here's the hard truth. Most people are making critical mistakes during these pivotal years. Mistakes that slowly chip away at their chances of joining the Century Club. The good news? These mistakes are completely avoidable. Today, I'm sharing 9 essential practices that could transform your next decades, and make sure you stay until the end. The final tip is something researchers at Harvard discovered just last year, and it's changing everything we thought we knew about longevity after 80. Point number 1, prioritize deep social connections. Have you noticed how easy it is to let friendships fade after retirement? Those workplace relationships that filled your days suddenly disappear, and before you know it, days can pass without meaningful human contact. My dear friend Walter experienced this firsthand. After 42 years at the same company, his retirement party was filled with promises to stay in touch and meet for lunch. 6 months later, his phone rarely rang. At 68, Walter found himself spending most days alone, with only the television for company. "I never realized how much of my social life was tied to my job," he confessed one afternoon, the weight of loneliness evident in his voice. What Walter was experiencing wasn't just sad, it was dangerous. Scientists from the Harvard study of adult development found that isolation can be as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. When we lack meaningful connections, our immune systems weaken, inflammation increases, and our brains actually begin to change in ways that accelerate aging. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require intention. Walter joined a local walking group that meets 3 mornings a week at the community park. "At first, I just went for the exercise," he told me with a chuckle. "But now I go for the conversation. We solve all the world's problems before 9 a.m. Beyond that simple start, he reconnected with an old hobby, photography, by joining a camera club that meets monthly. 2 years later, Walter has dinner plans twice a week and a calendar marked with social engagements. The key is regularity. Research shows that consistent social interaction, even just twice a week, reduces the risk of cognitive decline by 26% and increases longevity by nearly 4 years. It's not about having dozens of friends, it's about having meaningful exchanges where you feel seen and heard. I'd love to know if you've experienced this transition too. If you've ever felt that post-retirement isolation, type reconnect in the comments. And I'd be even more interested to hear how you overcame it. Your story might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. If you are still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you are here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Point number 2, redefine your purpose. Remember when Monday mornings meant something? When you had somewhere to be, people counting on you, and work that gave structure to your days? That sense of purpose didn't just fill your calendar. It was actually protecting your health in ways you might never have realized. Marilyn, a retired elementary school principal, described her first year of retirement as floating in space. At 67, after decades of making hundreds of decisions daily that impacted children and teachers, she suddenly had no one waiting for her expertise. "I slept later and later," she admitted. "Some days I didn't bother getting dressed. What was the point?" Within 18 months, her doctor was concerned about her rising blood pressure and signs of depression. The science behind this is fascinating. When we lose our sense of purpose, our bodies actually respond physically. Researchers at Rush University found that people with high purpose in life were 2.4 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's. Even more remarkable, autopsy studies showed that people with strong purpose had healthier brain tissue, even when physical markers of disease were present. In simple terms, purpose creates resilience in your very brain cells. For Marilyn, the turning point came when a former student asked if she might help at a struggling after-school program. Not as the person in charge, but as a volunteer reading tutor. "Just 2 afternoons a week," Marilyn explained, "but those children waiting for me gave me back my reason to set the alarm clock." 3 years later, she's expanded her volunteer work and serves on the program's advisory board. Her blood pressure returned to normal ranges, and her smile returned too. You don't need to solve world hunger to have purpose. What matters is having something that makes you feel needed and valuable. Perhaps it's teaching a skill to others, caring for grandchildren 1 day a week, volunteering at an animal shelter, or even starting a small business based on a lifelong hobby. The size of the contribution doesn't matter. What matters is that it feels meaningful to you. Have you found a new purpose after retirement? Or are you still searching? Share "found it" or "searching" in the comments. And if you found something fulfilling, please share what works for you. Your experience might light the path for someone else. Point number 3. Move every day, but change how you move. I've earned the right to take it easy. How many times have we heard friends say this? After decades of hard work, the recliner and remote can seem like a well-deserved reward. But here's the truth that might be hard to hear. Sitting has become one of the deadliest activities for those of us in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. My neighbor Frank, a retired postal carrier, spent 38 years walking his route in all weather conditions. "My legs carried me over 100,000 miles, he calculated proudly. When he retired at 66, he declared his walking days over. "These legs are retired too," he'd joke, settling into his armchair. Within 3 years, Frank developed type 2 diabetes, gained 42 pounds, and found himself unable to climb the stairs in his own home without getting winded. What happened to Frank happens to thousands of us, and the science explains why. After age 65, inactivity accelerates muscle loss at a frightening rate, up to 3 to 5% per year if we're sedentary. This condition, sarcopenia, doesn't just affect how we look. It directly impacts our metabolism, bone strength, balance, and ultimately our independence. Studies show that muscle strength is one of the most reliable predictors of longevity past 80. But here's the good news that changed everything for Frank. The type of movement that benefits us most after 65 is different from what you might think. Frank assumed he needed to return to walking miles daily, which felt overwhelming. Instead, his doctor prescribed something surprisingly manageable: strength training twice weekly, plus gentle daily movement. Frank started with a chair-based strength class at the senior center, just twice a week, using light resistance bands and small hand weights. He added a 15-minute walk after dinner. "Nothing like my mail carrier days," he explained, "just around the block." The transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months, Frank had reversed his pre-diabetic status, regained the ability to climb stairs without breathing heavily, and even started playing with his grandchildren on the floor, something he couldn't do before. The key is consistency over intensity. Research from Tufts University shows that even very gentle strength training can reverse age-related muscle loss by up to 175% in people over 65. The magic formula seems to be some form of resistance exercise twice weekly, 15 to 20 minutes of walking daily, and breaking up sitting time with movement every hour. I wonder about your experience with staying active. Have you found yourself more sedentary after retirement, or have you discovered a movement practice that works for you? Type "moving" in the comments if you're committed to keeping your body strong and share what's working for you. We can all learn from each other's journeys. Point number 4, feed your brain as carefully as your body. We pay so much attention to heart health, bone strength, and blood pressure. But when was the last time your doctor talked to you about feeding your brain? That 3-pound miracle between your ears is hungrily waiting for the right nutrients, especially after age 65. Dorothy, who many of you know from my previous videos, called me in a panic last year. At 78, this former librarian who could recite poetry from memory and beat everyone at Trivial Pursuit was finding herself forgetting names, losing her train of thought mid-sentence, and feeling foggy. "Is this the beginning of the end?" she asked me, fear trembling in her voice. Her doctor had told her it was just aging, offering little hope or solutions. What Dorothy's doctor missed was the growing body of research showing that nutrition after 65 has a profound impact on cognitive function. The brain changes as we age, requiring different nutrients to maintain its health. Researchers from Rush University developed the Mind Diet study, which found that people who followed their eating plan lowered their risk of Alzheimer's by up to 53%, even if they didn't follow it perfectly. For Dorothy, small changes made a remarkable difference. She began incorporating fatty fish like salmon twice weekly for the omega-3 fatty acids that brain cells need for repair. She added colorful berries daily, especially blueberries, which contain compounds that actually cross the blood-brain barrier to protect neurons. Dark leafy greens became a staple at lunch, providing folate that helps reduce inflammation in brain tissue. And she significantly reduced processed foods with their hidden sugars that create what neurologists call brain fog. Within 3 months, Dorothy noticed she could recall names more easily. By 6 months, she reported feeling sharper, more like myself. Was it dramatic? Number. Was it life-changing? Absolutely. At 79, she's now facilitating a book club and learning Spanish, feeding her brain with nutrition and stimulation. The wonderful thing about brain-healthy eating is that it doesn't require complicated regimens or expensive supplements. Simple shifts, more colorful vegetables, regular fatty fish, nuts and seeds, less processed food, and moderate consumption of red wine, yes, that's actually on the list. Create a foundation for brain health that can preserve your most precious asset, your mind. I'm curious, have you noticed changes in your mental clarity based on what you eat? Have you tried adjusting your diet specifically for brain health? Type "brain food" in the comments if you're interested in more detailed videos about nutrition for cognitive health, and share any changes you've noticed. Your experience matters. Point number 5, embrace restorative sleep as medicine. "I'll sleep when I'm dead." How many times did we hear that phrase throughout our working years? That badge of honor for burning the midnight oil has followed many of us into our 60s and beyond, but it might actually be shortening our lives more than anything else. James, a 73-year-old retired attorney, prided himself on needing only 5 hours a night. Throughout his career, he'd wake at 4 a.m. to prepare for court cases, fueled by coffee and ambition. In retirement, the habit stuck. Early rising, busy days, late-night television, repeat. "Sleep is for the lazy," he'd say with a wink. But behind that joke, James was battling constant daytime fatigue, increasing forgetfulness, and a weakened immune system that left him catching every cold that came around. What James didn't realize is that after 65, our sleep needs don't decrease, they change. Groundbreaking research from UC Berkeley shows that during deep sleep, Our brains actually wash away toxic proteins like beta amyloid that are linked to Alzheimer's disease. It's like a nightly cleaning crew for your brain, but only if you give it enough hours to complete the job. Even more surprising, this cleanup process becomes more critical, not less as we age. For James, the transformation began with reluctant acceptance of a sleep study, which revealed moderate sleep apnea, a common but serious condition affecting many older adults. Treatment for the apnea was step one, but equally important were the habits he changed, creating a consistent sleep schedule, even on weekends, eliminating screens 1 hour before bedtime, keeping his bedroom cool and dark, and shifting his exercise to morning hours instead of evenings. Within weeks, James noticed sharper thinking and fewer senior moments. After 3 months of prioritizing 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, his blood pressure decreased enough that his doctor reduced his medication. "I feel better at 74 than I did at 64, he told me recently. Who knew sleep was actual medicine? The research supports James's experience. Adults over 65 who consistently get quality sleep show stronger immune function, better memory consolidation, lower inflammation levels, and significantly reduced risk for dementia. Perhaps most compelling, a 20-year study found that consistent restorative sleep was a stronger predictor of longevity than even diet or exercise for adults over 70. I'm wondering about your sleep habits. Do you prioritize sleep, or are you still burning the midnight oil? Have you noticed changes in how you sleep as you've aged? Type "dreaming" in the comments if you're committed to making sleep a priority, and share any tips that have worked for you. Point number 6, manage stress through mindfulness. Remember when stress meant deadlines, mortgage payments, and getting the kids to soccer practice on time? As we move into our 60s, 70s, and 80s, stress doesn't disappear, it transforms. Health concerns, loss of loved ones, and adjusting to new limitations create a different kind of tension that can wear on our bodies in profound ways. Helen, a 77-year-old widow, found herself in what she called worry spirals after losing her husband of 52 years. "I'd wake at 3 a.m. cataloging everything that could go wrong," she told me, her hands fidgeting with her wedding ring. "Will I run out of money? What if I fall and no one finds me? Who will take care of my dog if something happens to me?" These thought patterns left her exhausted, irritable, and eventually with dangerously high blood pressure that medication alone couldn't control. The medical evidence is clear. Chronic stress in our later years creates a cascade of inflammation that accelerates the very aging process we're trying to slow. It increases cortisol levels that break down muscle tissue, weakens our immune response, and even changes how our genes express themselves. One remarkable study from UCSF found that chronic worriers show shorter telomeres, the protective caps on our chromosomes that predict longevity. Helen's turning point came through an unlikely source, a mindfulness class offered at her church. "I thought it sounded like nonsense," she admitted with a laugh. "Meditation at my age? But I was desperate enough to try anything." The simple practice of spending 10 minutes each morning focused on her breath, noticing thoughts but not attaching to them, gradually rewired her stress response. Within weeks, Helen found she could acknowledge her worries without being consumed by them. She added a gratitude practice each evening, writing down 3 good things from her day, no matter how small. 6 months later, her blood pressure had stabilized enough that her doctor reduced her medication. More importantly, she described feeling at peace with uncertainty for the first time since becoming a widow. The beauty of mindfulness is its simplicity. No special equipment, no complex rules, just the intentional practice of present moment awareness. Research shows that adults over 65 who practice mindfulness for just 12 minutes daily show measurable reductions in inflammatory markers and stress hormones within 8 weeks. Has worry become a constant companion in your life? Have you found ways to manage stress that work for you? Type present moment in the comments if you're interested in more content about stress management for our age group, and share any practices that have helped you find peace. If you are still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you are here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Point number 7, proactively manage your medical care. How many of us grew up with parents who only saw a doctor when something was seriously wrong? That generation's stoic approach, don't make a fuss, has followed many of us into our senior years. But when it comes to living to 100, being passive about healthcare might be one of the biggest mistakes we can make. Richard, a 68-year-old former construction worker, embodied this approach. "If I'm not bleeding or can't move, I don't need a doctor," he'd declare proudly. His annual physicals, skipped, recommended screenings, ignored, mysterious symptoms. "Just part of getting old," he'd shrug. That approach nearly cost Richard his life when what he dismissed as indigestion turned out to be a significant heart blockage that required emergency surgery. The science on preventive care for adults over 65 is overwhelmingly clear. A landmark study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that adults who engaged in regular preventive screenings and followed through on early interventions lived an average of 7.6 years longer than those who took a reactive approach to their health. Even more important, those additional years had significantly higher quality of life and independence. After his health scare, Richard transformed into what he jokingly calls the CEO of Richard's health. He created a simple system, a 3-ring binder with sections for each aspect of his health: medications, test results, appointments, and questions to ask. He scheduled recommended screenings without waiting for symptoms. He began bringing a written list of questions to each appointment and taking notes on the answers. Most importantly, he started viewing his doctors as partners rather than authorities, asking questions like, "What are my options?" and "What would happen if we tried this approach instead?" The results speak for themselves. 3 years later, Richard's previously undiagnosed high blood pressure is well controlled. His prediabetes was reversed through early intervention, and a suspicious skin lesion was removed before it could become dangerous. "I'll probably live to bother my kids for another 30 years, he laughs now. The key insight here isn't just about seeing doctors regularly. It's about becoming an active participant in your care. Research shows that patients who ask questions, seek second opinions when appropriate, and follow through on preventive recommendations have significantly better outcomes than those who simply follow instructions without engagement. I'm wondering about your approach to healthcare. Are you proactive or reactive? Have you found effective ways to advocate for yourself in medical settings? Type Health CEO in the comments if you're committed to taking charge of your medical care, and share any strategies that have helped you navigate the healthcare system more effectively. Your insights might help someone else take this crucial step toward a longer, healthier life. Point number 8, maintain financial peace of mind. Money worries don't retire when we do. In fact, for many of us, financial anxiety actually increases in our later years as we shift from earning to spending our savings. That constant stress doesn't just rob us of joy, it may actually be shortening our lives. Martha, a 71-year-old retired teacher, lived with what she called her 3 a.m. money panic. Despite careful planning and adequate savings, she would wake in the night consumed with questions. What if I need long-term care? What if the market crashes? What if inflation keeps rising? This financial anxiety manifested physically: tension headaches, digestive issues, and elevated blood pressure that her doctor couldn't explain through other causes. The research connecting financial stress to health outcomes is compelling. A study from Yale University found that adults over 65 who reported high financial stress showed measurably faster cellular aging. Essentially, their bodies were wearing out more quickly at the microscopic level. Even more striking, this effect was independent of actual financial status. Some participants with modest resources but financial peace showed better health markers than those with greater wealth but constant anxiety. Martha's transformation began not with a financial windfall, but with creating what she calls her enough plan. Working with a financial advisor who specialized in seniors, she determined her actual monthly needs versus wants. She created a simplified system to track her spending against this plan. Most importantly, she developed a written what-if strategy for various scenarios that had been causing her anxiety, from market downturns to health emergencies. Having a plan for the things I fear most took away their power, Martha explained. I still hope they never happen, but I no longer lie awake imagining the worst. Within months of implementing this approach, her unexplained health issues began to resolve. 2 years later, she describes feeling lighter and more present in her daily life, able to enjoy simple pleasures without the shadow of financial worry. The goal isn't to accumulate the maximum possible wealth, it's to create financial certainty and peace of mind. For some, this means working with a professional advisor. For others, it might involve simplifying finances, creating an automated system for bills, or having clear conversations with family members about future plans. The common thread is replacing uncertainty with clarity. I'd love to hear about your experience with financial peace of mind. Have you found ways to reduce money stress in retirement? Are there specific financial concerns that keep you up at night? Type peace of mind in the comments if you're interested in more content about financial well-being for seniors, and share any strategies that have helped you feel more secure. Point number 9. Cultivate optimism as a daily practice. At my age, it's all downhill from here. How often have we heard friends make comments like this, usually with a resigned laugh? That perspective, seeing aging primarily as decline, might be the most dangerous belief we can hold if we want to join the Centenarian Club. Edward, a 79-year-old former science teacher, caught my attention at a community workshop last year. While many participants were discussing their limitations, Edward raised his hand and announced, "I'm just getting started." Several people chuckled, assuming he was joking. He wasn't. Edward had just enrolled in a photography course, was learning Italian online, and had tickets to visit Sicily the following spring. Each morning I ask myself what I'm looking forward to today, he explained. Some days it's as simple as the perfect cup of coffee. Other days it's mastering a new Italian verb tense. But there's always something. What Edward intuitively practices is supported by remarkable research from the Harvard study of adult development. This 80-plus year study found that positive outlook wasn't just correlated with longer life. It was actually predictive. Participants who scored highest on measures of optimism and purpose at age 70 lived on average 7 to 10 years longer than those with pessimistic outlooks, even after controlling for health status, socioeconomic factors, and health behaviors. Even more fascinating is the new research from Mayo Clinic suggesting that optimism is a learnable skill, not a fixed personality trait. Edward's simple practice of looking forward to is actually rewiring his neural pathways, creating what neuroscientists call a positivity bias that strengthens with repetition. For those who dismiss this as positive thinking nonsense, consider this. Optimistic thinking patterns create measurable biological changes. People with positive outlooks show lower levels of inflammatory markers, better immune function, lower stress hormones, and even faster wound healing. One Yale study found that positive perceptions of aging added an average of 7.6 years to participants' lives. Edward's approach is wonderfully straightforward. Each morning, he writes down 3 things he's looking forward to that day. Each evening, he notes 3 good things that happened, no matter how small. He deliberately limits his consumption of negative news. And perhaps most importantly, he consciously challenges negative self-talk about aging, asking himself, is this thought helping me or limiting me? None of this requires denying real challenges or difficulties. Rather, it's about cultivating the resilience to face those challenges while still appreciating the good that remains present in every day. I'm curious about your outlook on aging. Do you see these years as primarily decline or as a unique phase with its own opportunities? Have you found ways to maintain optimism despite the challenges that aging brings? Type "looking forward" in the comments if you practice some form of intentional positivity, and share what works for you. As we reach the end of our time together today, I'm reminded of something Eleanor, that vibrant 103-year-old I mentioned earlier, told me. The secret, she said with a twinkle in her eye, is to live like you've got places to go and people to see, because you do. These 9 practices we've explored today aren't complicated medical breakthroughs or expensive treatments. They're accessible to all of us, regardless of our current age or circumstances. Deep social connections, purpose that gets you out of bed in the morning, daily movement that maintains your strength, brain-nourishing food, restorative sleep, mindfulness to manage stress, proactive healthcare, financial peace of mind, and that daily practice of optimism. Not one of these requires perfection. The research consistently shows that consistency matters more than intensity. Small daily choices add up to years, quality years added to your life. I'd love to know which of these 9 practices resonated most strongly with you. Which one might you focus on implementing more fully in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. If you found value in today's video, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Each subscription helps us continue creating content specifically designed for our generation. People who aren't just getting older, but getting better with each passing year. Until next time, remember Eleanor's words. You've got places to go and people to see. Here's to the journey toward your personal century mark. I believe you can get there.